1 minute is valuable time, so I'm going to take it. Welcome to the Bible study, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. I'm having a good day. Today, we're diving into a topic that has been everywhere today, it seems like, and that is sexual sin. We're not getting into anything graphic. My pastor at church preached on this today, and our Bible study is about it today, and everything kind of seems to be coming together to form one entire message. My pastor preached on the severity of sexual sin and the dangers of such sin. And today we're going to be looking at what to do when you find yourself to have failed. And the answer is drastic and extreme. And we are going to read about something today where God's people have to resort to doing something that is not in, I would say it's not in the perfect will of God to do. But in this passage, it seems to be necessary. I never intended on this live stream to get into my opinion or what I have come to realize about God's will. But we're going to get into that when we get into today's message. I'm going to try the best I can to squeeze this into 20 minutes. I planned on doing worship, but I really want to focus on what we're talking about and the details and all this stuff and get to the main point. So due to time, we're going to forego that. And I'm going to lead you into this first with establishing my opinion on God's will. But to do that, we're going to be in Ezra 9 and 10. Here we are, getting right into it. Now, there are some passages in the New Testament where I believe it's Paul is talking about God's will. And in one passage, he says God's good, perfect, and acceptable will. Most people think those are all adjectives for one thing, but in the language that it's translated, and I believe in the original language, those adjectives are very different in meaning. How can adjectives different in meaning apply to one meaning or one thing? If he was speaking on God's will as one thing, wouldn't he say it's good and perfect? Why would he say good, perfect, and acceptable? It's, in my opinion, that those are three different things. Since we have free will, God has a perfect will, and that would be exactly what he wants. Then there is acceptable, when we've missed the mark, but make up for it. And the good will is good. You see what I mean? I'll let you form your own opinion about that. But the reason I bring that up is because the Israelites in our passage today have committed a great sin. The leaders of the Levites and the priests and the people have intermarried with pagan women. Now, that is not in God's will, because that's a sin, a very great sin, and it's led them to do bad things and to participate in some of these pagan practices. Now, how do they fix such a thing? I'm going to spoil it for you. The way they end up fixing it is through a mass divorce of all the leaders. There were some people who were against this, but for them to get set back on the right path, that's what they do. Now, divorce, I believe, would never be in God's perfect will, and sin is not in God's perfect will, but getting back on the right path and overcoming and changing direction from your sin would be acceptable will, in my mind. So even though this is not the perfect outcome, and it's not really a good outcome, it is, to me, an acceptable outcome to accomplish the holiness and set apartness of the Israelite community, who needs to be set apart and pure for the coming of Jesus. So let's get into it. Ezra 9. When these things had been done, the Jewish leaders came to me and said, Many of the people of Israel, and even some of the priests and Levites, had not kept themselves separate from the other peoples living in the land. They have taken up the detestable practices of the Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, Ammonites, Moabites, Egyptians, and Amorites. For the men of Israel have married women from these people and have taken them as wives for their sons. So the holy race has become polluted by these mixed marriages. Worse yet, the leaders and officials have led the way in this outrage. When I heard this, I tore my cloak and my shirt, pulled hair from my head and beard, and sat down utterly shocked. Then all who trembled at the words of God of Israel came and sat with me because of this outrage committed by the returned exiles. So I sat there utterly appalled until the time of the evening sacrifice. At the time of the sacrifice, I stood up from where I had sat in mourning, with my clothes torn. I fell to my knees and lifted my hands to the Lord my God, and I prayed, "Oh my God, I am utterly ashamed. I blush to lift up my face to you, for our sins are piled higher than our heads, and our guilt has reached to the heavens. From the days of our ancestors until now, we have been steeped in sin. That is why we and our kings and our priests have been at the mercy of pagan kings of the land. We have been killed, captured, robbed, and disgraced, just as we are today. But now we have been given a brief moment of grace, for the Lord our God has allowed a few of us to survive as a remnant." Important word. He has given us security in this holy place. Our God has brightened our eyes and granted us some relief from our slavery, for we were slaves. But in his unfailing love, our God did not abandon us in our slavery. Instead, he caused the kings of Persia to treat us favorably. He revived us so we could rebuild the temple of our God and repair its ruins. He has given us protective wall in Judah and Jerusalem. And now, O our God, what can we say after all this? For once again we have abandoned your commands. Your servants, the prophets, warned us when they said, "The land you are entering to possess is totally defiled by the detestable practices of the people living there. From one end to the other, the land is filled with corruption. Don't let your daughters marry their sons. Don't take their daughters as wives for your sons. Don't ever promote the peace and prosperity of those nations. If you follow these instructions, you will be strong and will enjoy the good things the land produces, and you will leave this prosperity to your children forever." There's another thing we could get into with don't promote the peace and prosperity, about sinful peace. We'll save that for another day. Now we are being punished because of our wickedness and our great guilt, but we have actually been punished far less than we deserve. For you, our God, have allowed some of us to survive as a remnant. But even so, we are again breaking your commands and intermarrying with people who do these detestable things. Won't your anger be enough to destroy us, so that this little remnant no longer survives? O Lord God of Israel, you are just. We come before you in our guilt as nothing but an escaped remnant, though in such a condition none of us can stand in your presence. While Ezra prayed and made this confession, weeping and lying face down on the ground in front of the temple of God, a very large crowd of people from Israel, men, women, children, gathered and wept bitterly with him. Then Shechaniah, son of Jehiel, a descendant of Elam, said to Ezra, "We have been unfaithful to our God, for we have married these pagan women from the land. But in spite of this, there is hope for Israel. Let us now make a covenant with our God to divorce our pagan wives and to send them away with their children. We will follow the advice given by you and by others who respect the commands of our God. Let it be done according to the law of God. Get up, for it is your duty to tell us how to proceed in setting things straight. We are behind you, so be strong and take action." So Ezra stood up and demanded that the leaders of the priests and Levites and all the people of Israel swear that they would do as Shechaniah said, and they all swore a solemn oath. Then Ezra left the front of the temple of God and went to the room of Jehohanan, son of Eliashib. He spent the night there without eating or drinking anything. He was still in mourning because of the unfaithfulness of the returned exiles. Then a proclamation was made throughout Judah and Jerusalem that all the exiles should come to Jerusalem. Those who failed to come within 3 days would, if the leaders and elders so decided, forfeit all their property and be expelled from the assembly of the exiles. Within 3 days, all the people of Judah and Benjamin had gathered in Jerusalem. This took place on December 19th. And all the people were sitting in the square before the temple of God. They were trembling both because of the seriousness of the matter and because it was raining. Then Ezra the priest stood up and said to them, "You have committed a terrible sin by marrying pagan women, and you have increased Israel's guilt. So now confess your sin to the Lord, the God of your ancestors, and do what he demands. Separate yourself from the people of the land and from these pagan women." Then the whole assembly raised their voices and answered, "Yes, you are right. We must do as you say." Then they added, "This isn't something that can be done in a day or two, for many of us are involved in this extremely sinful affair. And this is the rainy season, so we cannot stay out here much longer. Let our leaders act on behalf of all of us. Let everyone who has a pagan wife come at a scheduled time, accompanied by the leaders and judges of his city, so that the fierce anger of our God concerning this affair may be turned away from us." Only Jonathan, son of Asahel, and Jehaziah of Tikva opposed this course of action, and they were supported by Meshullam and Shabbatai, the Levite. This was the plan they followed. Ezra selected leaders to represent their families, designating each of the representatives by name. On December 29th, the leaders sat down to investigate the matter. By March 27th, the first day of the new year, they had finished dealing with all the men who had married pagan wives. These are the priests who had married pagan wives. From the family of Jeshua, son of Jehozadak, and his brothers, Maaseh, Eleazar, Jerib, Gedaliah. They vowed to divorce their wives, and they each acknowledged their guilt by offering a ram as a guilt offering. From the family of Immar, Hanani and Zebediah. From the family of Haram, Maaseiah, Elijah, Shemaiah, Jehiel, and Uzziah. From the family of Pashur, Elionai, Maaseiah, Ishmael, Nathanael, Jozabad, and Elasa. These were the Levites who were guilty: Jozabad, Shimei, Keliah, Pethaiah, Judah, and Eleazar. This is the singer who was guilty: Eliashib. These were the gatekeepers who were guilty: Shullam, Telem, and Uri. These are the other people of Israel who were guilty. From the family of Parosh, Ramiah, Eliziah, Malchijah, Eleazar, Hashabiah, and Benaiah. From the family of Elam, Mattaniah, Zechariah, Jehiel, Abdi, Jeremoth, and Elijah. From the family of Zatu, Elianiah, Eliashib, Mattaniah, Jeremoth, Zabad, and Isaiah. From the family of Bebai, Jehonanan, Hananiah, Zabai, and Athaliah. From the family of Bani, Meshullam, Maluk, Abadiah, Adiah, Jashub, Sheol, and Jeremoth. From the family of Pahath Moab, Adnah, Kelal, Benaiah, Maaseiah, Mattaniah, Bezil, Benui, and Manasseh. From the family of Haram, Eleazar, Izakah, Malchijah, Shemaiah, Shimeon, Benjamin, Maluk, and Shemariah. From the family of Hashum, Mattaniah, Mattatah, Zabad, Eliphalet, Jeremiah, Manasseh, and Shimei. From the family of Bani, Madai, Amram, Uel, Benai, Bidadai, Kalum, Vinai, Meremoth, Elishib, Mattaniah, and Jesu. From the family of Bunu, Shimei, Shelemiah, Nathan, Adiah, Machnabiah, Sheshai, Sherai, Azarel, Shimei, Shemariah, Shalom, Amariah, and Joseph. From the family of Nebo, Jael, Mattaniah, Zabad, Zebaniah, Jadadai, Joel, and Benaiah. Each of these men had a pagan wife, and some even had children by these wives. So, what we see here is Israel finding themselves in a great sin. A sin so great, they have to do something that God does not want in his perfect will, which is a divorce, en masse to fix this sin. So think about this. If the severity of sexual sin such as this is so severe and so damaging. Any way to get out of it and stop that or fix it, get out of the way, flee from temptation, do whatever it costs. The Israelites, it cost them to divorce their wives, send them away with their children, and never see them again. That is the severity of this sin. That is the severity of sexual sin. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to go about life with one part of your body missing than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. The severity of this sin is so extreme that Israelites went through a mass divorce to get it out of the way and fix it. So if you're asking yourself, I've done this, I'm at this point, this is what I'm struggling with, I'm in this, how do I get out of it? Get out of it by any way is necessary, whatever the cost, whatever the course of action, whatever it takes. Even if it takes something as extreme as a mass divorce. This shows the heart of God. Whatever it takes to get that out of your life and get you on the right path, you have to do it. Now, I'm a hypocrite. I struggle with sin just like everybody else, okay? I struggle with fleshly temptations. I'm a man. Every man deals with it. Every woman deals with it. We are flesh on this earth, and we have these struggles and battles. But whatever it takes, whatever the cost, whatever the price, whatever the course of action, get it out of your life. Be done with it. And then move on. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.